So it looks like Resident Evil 1 Remake is going, well, I just spoiled it. It looks like Resident Evil 1 is going to get a remake, and it's going to be a third-person remake in the REX engine, and it's basically going to look like the Resident Evil 2 remake, the Resident Evil 3 remake, and the Resident Evil 4 remake that we just got, which is huge. It's huge because Resident Evil 1 came out in 1996, and it was a different type of game than what we have now with all of these current remakes. And this is coming from a couple different leakers on Twitter, and the rumor states that it's set to release sometime in 2026 for the Resident Evil 30th anniversary, which is pretty big news. So a lot of people speculated that potentially we were going to be getting a Resident Evil 5 remake, or a lot of people really want a Resident Evil Code Veronica remake, but it looks like those may not be coming out as of yet, and the next big one that they're working on is the first one, which I personally, on a personal level, think it's a good idea. Now, I know that a lot of people may not want it. I've already seen some comments with people saying, well, I think it should be left alone. I don't think it should be remade. We can move on to other things. But if they've already made Resident Evil 2, 3, and 4, I don't see why they never would remake 1 in the same vein. Now, it's gotten remastered, it's gotten, updated or whatever over the years, but it just doesn't make sense, because think about it from this perspective. When you're a new gamer or you've never played the Resident Evil games, they have now created almost a catalog of, okay, this person wants to get into Resident Evil. They're not going to buy the originals that came out. They're going to want to go and buy the remakes, which have become like, they're the new games and stuff like that. So my point is, guys, you're going to want to do it starting with the remakes. And that's what a lot of the newer people that are getting into the games are going to think. Because if you just play Resident Evil 4 Remake, you're like, oh my God, this game is amazing. Let me play the third and the second and the first. So you go and you see the first, and it's like, maybe you're a new generation gamer or whatever, and you're like, oh, you know what? I don't want to play it like this, or this is not my cup of tea. I can't get into it. I like the design for the fourth. And then you see that 2 has a remake and that 3 has a remake, so you get into it. And I think it'll make sense to have the first one remade as well, in the same vein that the second, third, and fourth have now gotten remade. This is good in my opinion, because you can tell a cohesive story now, or a story that makes a little bit more sense now. You're not changing the lore of the games, you're not changing big things, but you're fixing a couple of different things, you're improving a couple of different things, and maybe making the message of Resident Evil, or the storyline of Resident Evil, a little bit more better, more understandable, more cohesive, like I said. And that is really cool, because it's like you're getting a second shot at fixing maybe some of the things that you didn't like the first time that you did it. And with Resident Evil 1 Remake, you get to tie in maybe better into Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 3 and Resident Evil 4. You're really being granted the opportunity to rewrite a story and make it make more sense. And I think Resident Evil 1 Remake is something that I have personally thought we should have gotten a long time ago, and I've kind of been asking for it, on my own. And with that being made, now if they decide to go the route of remaking Resident Evil 5 and 6, they can fix a lot of the things that maybe they didn't like at the time. Because from what I've heard, Resident Evil 6 has been one of the worst Resident Evil games out there, and Resident Evil 5 had its flaws. I played Resident Evil 5 back when it came out, and I enjoyed it a lot. But I think it's a really cool thing that they've gone back and remade these classic games and have brought them into modern hardware and modern storytelling. And I hope that this rumor turns out to be true, and I got a feeling that it is going to turn out to be true.